If you are trying to get better, you should invest in training. This episode is going to save you a lot of money. If you have a 50% conversion rate or 60% conversion rate, you might not be charging enough. I can tell you the problem is almost never the leads. Speed wins. When you're actually doing proposals, by the end, you'll know your number one leak and the number one thing to fix in the next 30 days. He used AI to close a $200,000 commercial roofing contract because his proposal was ready in 30 minutes.
This is AI and Marketing for Home Service Pros, the show for contractors who want to grow without wasting time or money. If you're in roofing, HVAC, plumbing, or any home service business, we break down how AI and modern marketing can help you book more jobs, close more leads, and build a business that runs without babysitting every task.
If you're a home service contractor who thinks the answer to a slow month is buying more leads, this episode is going to save you a lot of money because after 9 years and more than 500 contractors, I can tell you the problem is almost never the leads. Leads are the easy part. The problem is 5 specific leaks in your funnel that drain the jobs you already paid for. Today, I'm walking you through all 5. Speed to lead, contact rate, booking rate, show rate, and close rate. You'll hear the benchmark number for each one, the real money companies recovered by fixing them, including $750,000 in 60 days from one follow-up campaign, and how 2 contractors with the same 100 leads end up with 6 jobs versus 12. By the end, you'll know your number one leak and the number one thing to fix in the next 30 days. This is the AI marketing show for home service pros. Let's get into it. What's up, guys? This is Mauricio Cardenal with AI marketing show for home service pros. I'm super excited to talk today about this episode. This is a solo episode that I put together that really takes information from the Everseen event that I did with contractors. It was a private workshop that I did with 30 contractors, and the feedback I got was tremendous. So I put together this solo podcast for you guys that gives you a kind of access into that information so you can actually really get detailed information to really help your business and really help you scale. The main thing that I want you guys to understand is that you guys do not need more leads. You need to fix this first. I'm going to talk about the 5 funnel leaks that are costing contractors the best job. It's not a lead problem. Your leads are usually the easiest part. The hard part is actually putting the pieces together so you can scale. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of ways to generate leads. You can generate leads by going to a lead broker. You could go to Angie's List. You could go to, a home advisor and start buying leads. You can hire canvassing. You can spend money on Google Ads, local SEO, local service ads. You can do Facebook advertising. You can do traditional direct mail, referrals. There's so many ways. There's about 25 ways to 30 ways to generate leads. You go to events as well. But the issue is that most of the time, it's not the actual problem. We're going to talk about what is the leak and identify which leak is costing your business money so you can fix it. You can start growing your business in the next 30 days. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, just to brag. I've been doing this for a while, right? I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this over 9 years. I've been working with contractors. We got my first roofing client back in 2017. In that time, we've worked with over 500 plus contractors. We've generated over 200,000 inbound leads, and we've generated over 150 million in track sales with the clients that we work with. One of the things that I've seen consistently working with contractors is that I've seen patterns, right? Patterns that people face in terms of actually getting the best results for their business. And if they actually overcome the negative things that are happening in terms of the marketing, then we're going to actually do this for your business to really get you the best success. One of the things that you have to understand is before you actually get into actually fixing the leaks and actually pouring more money into the gasoline, you have to know what your actual numbers are. I've talked to many contractors, and you'd be surprised how many do not know their actual baseline numbers. What you need to understand before you actually start doing this audit is you have to understand, what is your average job value? How much does each customer worth to your business? It's different for different businesses. It's different for pest control. It's different for roofing, different for plumbing, HVAC. Depending on the home service industry you're in, obviously it's going to change and adapt. That's why you have to understand what business you're in terms of recurring revenue or project revenue. You have to understand what your average job value is. And then you have to understand what your gross margin is. How much money do you keep after labor and materials? To give you an example, if you have a $10,000 job, if you're replacing a water heater or replacing a small roof, you're doing 30% margin on that plus commission. You're basically 35% done, you're probably taking home 5 to 6K on that. How much can you actually take as a cost per acquisition? How much money can you actually spend to acquire that customer and still be profitable? That's you have to understand these numbers as a baseline number to understand before you start really spending money on marketing. When you are spending money on marketing, you have to understand what your budget is, and you have to understand how many customers you're willing to pay to acquire each customer. It's obviously going to be different depending on the home service you're in. It's going to be different depending on the product you sell. It's going to be different on the time of the year, the location, the competitiveness. Obviously, smaller markets are going to be less competitive than bigger markets. So you have to understand what the baseline numbers in. At the end of the day, I want you guys to understand marketing is a mathematical game. It's all it is, right? If you do the math in your business, understand your numbers, you'll be successful with the campaigns. Here are the 5 stages that we actually talk about. The first is speed to lead. Second is contact rate. Third is booking rate. Fourth is show rate. And fifth is close rate. Now, this is basically the most high level way to look at these different buckets. But if you're running, a sophisticated operation, you would know this on a more level, right? Granular level. This is basically just a understanding about the actual results in terms of a high level understanding, because obviously depending on the business, you can get a lot more complicated depending on what your level are. But typically, this is just kind of the benchmark numbers you have to look at: speed to lead, contact rate, booking rate, show rate, and then close rate. And these are the numbers that you can give you as a benchmark as a glance. The first one I want to talk about is speed to lead. I've had multiple podcast guests talk about this specifically for a long time. And I've been doing this for a long time. And what I've seen overall is that this is really not a technical issue or a knowledge issue. It's just a discipline issue. A lot of people understand the importance of speed to lead, but for whatever reason, they just fail to implement and execute this in their business. So this is really not a skill set or a knowledge gap or a tool get. It's just really a discipline issue. The issue with this, at the end of the day, you are in the home services space. Most of the time, the biggest factor in closing deals is speed. So 78% of customers buy from the first company that responds. It's very important to understand that metric. There's a 60% drop in odds of reaching the lead after 1 hour. So if you wait 1 hour to respond to a lead, then your chances of actually closing the lead are going to drop significantly. It's a 9x high return when you respond with under 5 minutes versus 30 plus. There's a lot of different tools you can use to improve these numbers, but at the end of the day, it's not really about what you use. It's really a decision you make in your business. I just talked to one of our former employees that actually ended up starting his own service business. He actually is a remodeling company in Florida. And what he did is basically copied what we did for our clients. So he had speed to lead. He had the front end with the Facebook advertising. And then he has on the back end go ahead level to actually respond to the leads in a easy way to understand. And then he has a call center that actually kind of follows up with the lead and calls them, tries to book an appointment. And then he has a dispatch person to actually call and actually confirm the appointment. And that's a really simple system. We set this up for our clients many times. It's not really super complicated, but it's amazing to me that how many contractors do not understand something simple like this. Speed to lead is number one. It is a discipline issue. It's not about technology, the tools. It's about actually deciding you're going to do it. Here's some things that you can do. Obviously, having a 60-second auto text, every phone call or chat around the clock, having another missed call text back within 30 seconds every time. Another thing you could do is having an AI receptionist after hours, and then also a smart routing at pushing the lead to whatever is free right now. So a couple of things that are not here that I can talk about that can really help you is this. When obviously you guys have fixed hours. So if you have your regular, CSRs answering the phone between 8 to 5, you obviously are the person, routing. You have that lead route to that in office. But if you have it, if all those lines are busy, they routes to a specific area to actually to the call center. If it's not busy, but if it's after hours, then it routes to the actual after hours route. So it takes 2 routes, one where it's during office hours and one when it's after hours. And then whatever, obviously where it comes in, then that's how you actually get the lead to actually respond, right? That's another thing you can do. League 2 is contact rate. This is a big one, right? A lead benchmark is 90%. What is a contact rate? A contact rate is basically how many leads actually get contacted. So a simple way to understand this is out of 100 leads, if you're contacting 90, that's a 90%, contact rate. It's really not that hard to understand, but a lot of leads go unanswered. Actually, a ton of leads go unanswered. And you would be surprised how many people do not actually have this in place. So if you don't have something like this in place where you're responding to every lead, you're actually have a trained CSRs, then actually doing any type of advertising is really kind of a waste of money. That's, to be honest, fact. So you should actually understand how to fix this in your business to really figure this out first before actually hiring any marketing company. Because if you hire a marketing company, you're spending a ton of money, then you're not going to get the results that you need. So just make sure you actually understand this. One thing to keep in mind is that when you're doing the contact rate, you have to span it over 14 days. This is kind of the way to understand is lead nurturing. So when you nurture your leads through a 14 touch points through a 2 or 3 week process, it can actually significantly improve your contact rate to set more appointments. These are just examples. These are just companies that are actually left money on the table. They just didn't change anything with the marketing, and they actually use this to actually recover money. So one example is from Chirp, which is a podcast guest that I had on, where they talked about a specific account, which they generated $750,000 in 60 days from a missed call text campaign. Another one is a $250,000, which was generated in week 1 from abandoned call. So here's what that means. Anybody that was abandoned, right, that had a call that came in, but nobody answered the phone, they actually called those leads back, and they actually generated over 250,000 in revenue from that. So obviously it was a high volume of leads that they didn't contact, but you'd be surprised how many leads do not get contacted. So again, strive for 95%. Maybe 100% is not ideal, but you should definitely go for 100% at least. Here's something that you should definitely use. One of the things that it can help improve the contact rate and help you turn those leads into appointments is texting like a human. A lot of people, they can use AI to write messages, and it's super simple to create content with AI and create messages. But one of the things that can really help you is when you write, if you're using AI, to make sure it writes in a conversational human manner. This will improve your contact rate tremendously. Another thing to keep in mind is this. So if you're doing Facebook ads and a lead comes in a form submission or landing page, then make sure the first message references the actual lead. So for example, hey, I saw you filled out a form from Facebook. How can I help you? Something simple like that. Obviously, reference where the lead comes in. Another factor that I would consider is this. And this really is more dependent on the volume, because I probably would not recommend this if you don't have a high volume, probably not worth it. But if you are sending messages, if you send messages through iPhone, it's going to have a much higher response rate. So blue over green is typically a 50% higher response rate. And the reason being is because obviously the iMessage is a direct contact. It doesn't come from an unknown number if you're doing it correctly. And also if you're sending messages that are not scalable. For example, one thing you can do, guys, is when you are sending a video to get a reply, you can have an owner or a salesperson sending a short video from the iPhone saying, hey, thank you for filling out this information. I look forward to connecting and sending a technician or a project manager to discuss your project and get to know you a bit. Here's a little information about us, etc., etc. So those are something that can really help you stand out, because it would improve your contact rate. At the end of the day, people don't really want to talk to machines. They do prefer the human touch. So when you add the human touch to your business, it's going to help you really get a high response rate. And when you get a high response rate with your funnel, with your leaks, you're going to get more return from your investment. That's the whole thing about this campaign. Leak 3 is booking rate, 42% industry average. That's according to Service Titan. So out of 100 leads that come in, about 42% are actually booking appointments. And that is a significant gap. Just to give you an example, Elite is about 60 to 65%. A company like A1 Garage, according to what I researched, they have about 90% of their calls come in and they actually booking appointments, right? And that's the thing you have to understand. So if you just fix the booking rate in your business, you're going to increase your revenue by not even changing anything else. So for example, if you have a $5 million company that is doing 5 million, if they just increase their booking rate from 60 to 70%, that's an addition of $500,000 in revenue if everything else stays the same. If the speed to lead stays the same, if the actual closing rate stays the same, everything else stays the same. So that's a big change that you have to keep in mind with everything else. One thing is this: you have to train your CSRs. You have to get them to understand how to really book an appointment. One podcast I have you listen to is from Brigham Dickinson. I interviewed him a few months ago, and he talked about specific things that your CSRs can do to book appointments. This is a big factor because it's a revenue generator that can help you really get more business for your company. Here's an example. This is from Stephen Van Horn. I interviewed him earlier this year, and he talked about his company, which he scaled, and his company was Simpson Salute. They didn't change anything in their business. What they did is basically they trained their CSRs and they added 4 million in revenue just from one training session, from not one training session, from consistent training sessions throughout the time. So they tracked 4 million in revenue by just fixing their actual booking rate. And this is a big deal. And obviously they use, software to track their booking rate. So they know out of 100 calls, how many were booked. Again, the average home operator is booking 42%. Try to go to 60, 70%. If you're just doing this every time, you're going to actually book more appointments and more sales. And that is a huge opportunity and huge leak you can find that can help you get more business. League 3. This is basically from Brigham Dickinson. I really recommend you listen to that podcast. But every caller has to have 3 needs before they book. They have to feel understood. So you have to make sure they understand what you're talking about. They have to feel cared about. You can actually measure this through the recording. You have to incentivize your CSRs to understand how to actually get the best results for booking the appointments. And then also you have to make them feel reassured. So if you have these 3 things, make them feel understood, make them feel cared about, and make them feel reassured, then you are really getting a much better results by booking more appointments from your CSRs. One thing is that I recommend, obviously, stop saying, "I'm sorry to hear that." It does sound fake. Make sure you train your CSRs. You can do this twice a month. Listen to the calls. Use call recording software. There's many different ones you can use. Ones you can use is obviously Go High Level does this as well. CallRail, Service Titan, they all can record calls. It's for training purposes. And obviously you can use AI to analyze the sentiment of the calls. But this is something that you can do that can really help you improve your revenue. When you're hiring marketing campaigns, when you're spending money on ads, any change in your campaigns in this can really get you the better results over time. League 4, show rate. So once you book the appointment, what is the show rate? Out of 10 appointments, how many are actually showing up to the actual appointment? You should strive for 80%. That's what the goal is. So if you book 10 appointments, you have 80% show rate, then that's a good rate that you should go for. Anything under 70% means your confirmation process is broken and now you're leads. So you're getting appointments, but you're not getting the actual people to show up to the actual appointment. That is a gap you can see. So those are things you can do to improve on this. And you have to make sure you're tracking this. So this is something obviously that is set up with your tech stack. It's set up with your software. That's why it's so important to be tech enabled, tech focused, because when you're spending money on ads, when you're spending money on campaigns, when you're spending real money and it's getting more expensive every year, you have to kind of fix these things to actually get the best results for your business. And if you're not doing this, then it's really a failure responsibility. Here are things you can do to actually fix a show rate. First is at the booking. You can actually send a message about what to expect. You could talk about what's unique about your business, about your company, your process. What is it to expect once they show up for the booking, once they show up for the showroom, once they show up for the actual tech visit? What is it to expect after a water heater replacement visit, a roof replacement visit? Whatever it is, you have to have like a message that can really resonate with the user. And that's something that they can really feel confident that you're actually a real deal. Another thing you could do is actually in that message, make sure that they are talking about the show them videos and testimonials. They could feel reassured about the actual message. Another thing you could do is the day before, you can either call to confirm or actually text them to confirm the meeting. These are the things that you can do. Get them to commit. Ask them to reply. This is a good thing that you can do. So it gets them to actually reply in the message as well. Then obviously the day of the meeting, send a reminder and make sure that they get that message. This all can be automated, and obviously you can have one person that's doing this. Another thing you can do, it can actually improve your show rate, is the night before, just basically have your tech or your project manager send a selfie video talking about 10 to 15 seconds, 30 seconds about yourself, who you are, what you do, and just kind of give that personal touch. These are things that are not automated that can really help you really separate yourself from the competition. League five is the close rate. Obviously, you have to be tracking your close rate. Out of 10 sits, out of 10 appointments, how many are closing? Is it 20%, 30%, 40%? Obviously, there's things that you can do to improve this. This is an entire presentation, entire training that you can actually do this on your own, but it's not really part of this. But at the end of the day, there's entire industries about sales. It's a very important way to actually get the best results. A lot of people, what they do is actually just kind of focus on this aspect and ignore the other aspects that are really important. But this is the last part, and it's important to understand. Obviously, like if you are trying to get better, you should invest in training and getting the best results for your sales team, right? These are all important factors to understand. So obviously the range changes depending on, what industry you're in. These are just kind of the average range. It just depends on the actual range that you're looking for. But obviously you have to track this. And sometimes really having a higher range might not be the best strategy, because if you have a 50% conversion rate or 60% conversion rate, you might not be charging enough. So that's just something you have to keep in mind. So obviously you don't want to leave money on the table. You want to have a certain revenue to actually capture the information you need and the revenue you need to actually make it profitable. One example, right? I had Brad Strawbridge on my podcast a few months ago, and he used AI to close a $200,000 commercial roofing contract because his proposal was ready in 30 minutes. So think about that for a second. What he did is basically he used AI to gather the information from the user and then put together a proposal within a couple hours. The competitors needed 7 days. He did it within a couple hours. And the board said it was the best proposal they'd ever seen. The thing is to keep in mind is that speed wins. When you're actually doing proposals, when you're actually sending and doing all this stuff, this is going to help you improve your close rate. So obviously this is a way to use AI to actually improve your closing rate. And it's something that you should actually learn more about on how to do this for your business. Closing rate again. So obviously having AI draft your proposal, having automated follow-up, and then obviously using tools like Rilla to role play your different sales reps. These are all tools that can help you understand, get better with your closing rate, and it can really get the best results with your accounts. One thing to understand is that I see this all the time. Actually, the biggest mistake in the space, this is basic directly from talking with a lot of contractors that have been doing this for a long time, is that the biggest mistake is actually not charging enough. So not charging enough for their work. Because when you're not charging enough for your work, everything else goes downstream from that. So you have to charge enough money to have enough profit in the campaign to actually get the best results for your business, right? So what you should do, typically, this is just basically just kind of things you can work on, is having 3 tiers for the pricing, giving them 2 options, having add-ons and upsells into the property, so making sure you can add those in to increase your customer lifetime value, and then also creating upgrades, cross sells, all these different things that can really help you as well. And obviously offering finance. This is a big factor. You'd be surprised how many contractors do not offer financing, but it's a huge factor in closing more deals. The big thing to understand is this, and this is the whole thing about the podcast. If you have one contractor get 6 jobs from 100 leads, but another contractor get 12 jobs from 100 leads, why do you think that was? It's not the leads. This is something that you have to really understand. For us as a business, we run similar campaigns for accounts, right? Why do some clients get results and some clients do not get results? So it's this exact reason, right? So if you actually understand this and you actually apply this for your business and actually work on fixing each step, then that's how you get double the output. So because Operation A, to give you an example, they closed 6 jobs. They had a contact rate of 55%. They had a booking rate of 55%, a show rate of 75%, and a close rate of 28%. Contact Operation B, right? They fixed 2 stages. The contact rate went up to 75%. The booking rate went up to 75%. They had the same show rate and they had the same close rate, and they ended up closing 12 jobs, which is double the output. Those are things that you have to understand with your job. This is a really key thing to understand about really getting the best results for your business with your marketing ads. When you fix this, you can start compounding everything after the close. You can start asking for referrals. You can start asking for jobs. You can start knocking the doors in the same neighborhood. These are all things that can help you as well. You can request reviews. Every review is a geo asset. Every review is a SEO asset. The more reviews you have in your business, the better results you will get. And then you can do is obviously have AI run in the background where they're actually working on these different things in your business to get the best results. Every customer you should treat as a gold and you should treat it as an asset. And even the small customers can help you get compound over time. And this is how like these bigger companies are, have 10,000 reviews or 15,000 reviews because they work with thousands of customers over the years. And that obviously that value compounds over time. So find your number, right? What is your leak? Fix it in 30 days. So what is your stage? Like what is the stage that's biggest leak? Understand what the numbers are. What is your average customer value? What is your gross profit? What is your speed to lead? What is your booking rate? Calculate the value, lead volume plus improvement at the weakest stage, and also commit to one action. These are the things that can really help you in your business and really get you the best results for your business over time. So just to give you perspective at the end, these numbers come from Service Titan. Also, they came from the podcast with Ryan Fenn, where he analyzed over 500 million text messages. So I really recommend you start listening to that one. Another one is from Power Selling Pros. These are all people I've interviewed in the podcast. And these are all real numbers that I've shared with the AI marketing show. These are people that are really in the space. So I'm going to have the links to each podcast in the show notes so you can actually see yourself the actual results. So again, guys, thank you for listening to this. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good takeaways from this and really start fixing the leaks in your funnel to really get the best results for your marketing. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to AI and Marketing for Home Service Pros. If you got value from today's episode, do us a favor. Follow the show, share it with a contractor friend, and leave a quick review. Want help using AI or smarter marketing to grow your business? Head to contractormarketingpros.net and book your free strategy call.